car crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with the attorneys of Hollis Wright.
Thanks for joining us. You are watching The Attorneys. I'm Art Franklin. We've got a good one for you. Generative AI, opportunities and challenges. It is a really hot topic in the legal world, and we are going to dive right into it. But before we do that, I want to remind you that attorneys at Hollis Wright are standing by right now. We always do that at the very beginning of the show to answer your call at 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's 1-844-LAW-TALK. It is a free call. It is confidential as well. And we're going to get right into this topic because we were just talking about it and playing with our little AI gadgets right now. But this is a topic, Josh, that is fascinating.
You know, it's not just fascinating, it is changing industries, including the legal world. AI is something that we take so seriously at our law firm to use for the benefit of our clients because we know that technology is changing, that we have put Michael Eldridge, who, of course, is one of my partners at our firm, in charge of teaching us all of this stuff. And I do think his generation versus my generation matters. He's done a great job, and he's here today to talk about an incredible topic. 40% of lawyers using this right now. It's nuts what technology sounds like today.
Yeah, and using it in a lot of different ways. So this for me started out more as curiosity generally, Josh, and then I was up at the office one day, and I'll tell you about it a little bit later, and you know about it because I've become almost obsessed with it for a couple of different reasons. The easiest one is the self-serving reasons of work smarter, not harder. If I can do something easier, then do it. But then there's some ethical concerns. And you know, Art, you just talked about how there's like this craze of AI and it's everywhere. Well, AI, at least for my lifetime, I'm not going to ask how old y'all are, has been around our entire lives. Yeah. We've used it our entire lives, or at least my entire life. So if you go back to the 60s, we had AI systems in place. And all artificial intelligence is programming, computer programming, that allows a computer to complete a task that would otherwise require a human intelligence, a human to do it. Right, so take, for example, you can go back to the 80s, you have word processors that have spell check. That's artificial intelligence. You've got things like voice assistants that we've had for decades. You can go back to the 60s, y'all remember they had what IBM eventually called Watson that played chess against. All of that is artificial intelligence. However, it's not the artificial intelligence that we're talking about now. So there is this, what those systems are, they're called narrow AI, or just traditional AI is what they call them. And essentially what those programs do is they can do a single task. So take, for example, your spam folder on your email. That's artificial intelligence. Its task is to figure out what emails should go to your inbox, what emails should go to your spam.
Thank you for that, by the way. I do like that.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Your spam folder messes up sometimes.
That's right. Yes, it does.
And the only way, it can't fix itself.
Right.
Right? So the only way to fix it is a human has to go in from Microsoft and reprogram Outlook. Or if you've got something on your iPhone, you ever wonder why you have to keep going and downloading the iOS? That's a human fixing narrow or traditional AI. Yeah. So you may be asking yourself, if it's been around for forever, why are we just now talking about it? And it's because we're now dealing with this subset of AI that's called generative AI. And what generative AI is artificial intelligence that is not limited to the program.
And this is a good example. Before we started, you did a generative AI on your phone.
Correct.
And it sounds just like you.
It did.
It's nuts.
Confuses me.
Yes, which is a little scary.
and Michael and I were talking about this, but can you break down generative AI in the legal world? Because that's where we're really going with this topic today.
Yeah, so the easiest way for me to explain it, and I'm not a tech guy, just like I said, I kind of became obsessed with this. The easiest way for me to explain it is your spam folder, let's go back to that traditional AI, it can do its task the right way, and it can send the right emails to the spam folder and the right emails to your inbox. However, you know what it cannot do? It can't create an email. You can't go to it and say, create an email. The generative AI systems that we now have, you can go, they are not restricted by anything. They are learning as they go, and they can create something that has never existed before, ever.
And how is this going to impact, like, just to explain to the folks watching, how this impacts the legal world itself? Like, what do we see? Because, like, I've always looked at things like Travelocity and Google as mechanisms of a computer doing work for me to put together a bunch of information and data and spit it out in a simpler format for me to be able to go find it. But what Michael's talking about and some of the stuff that he's taught our lawyers at our law firm is unbelievable how this is going to impact the legal world. So give a couple examples of just how you think it's going to impact the legal world itself.
Okay, well, you just said that you're used to a computer doing work for you. A computer's never done work for you like this in the fact that with generative AI, we now have computers that can actually do legal work. All right, let me ask y'all a question. Have y'all heard about this picture, seen this picture of the golden retriever? He's dressed up like a lawyer, and he's arguing with a penguin outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium?
No.
Y'all haven't heard about that?
No, we haven't.
Well, y'all and every other person on the planet except for me can say no to that, because until this morning, it did not exist. Okay? Is that, you see the golden retriever?
That's crazy.
Dressed up like a lawyer arguing with a penguin outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium. That exists for one reason. When I was sitting in my car before we came in here, I typed into ChatGPT, will you make me a picture of a golden retriever dressed up like a lawyer arguing with a penguin outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium, and within seconds it sent that back to me. So how that's going to affect us now is I can go into ChatGPT and say, hey, here is, and this is what literally happened to me, a deposition. I don't want to read the whole thing. You read it, and here's what I want you to focus on. And it will do that work for me. Now, here's the thing. That's incredible, and there's a ton of opportunities with that. But there's also a lot of pitfalls that come with it that we as lawyers have to realize that we can't just run into this open and with just think, oh, all of these opportunities, this is going to make my life easier, because, and we'll talk about the rules of ethics and the rules of professional conduct. We still have responsibilities as lawyers. I mean, for example, if you're on an airplane tomorrow, they're going to have autopilot that is using artificial intelligence. There's still going to be a pilot there. And if that autopilot messes up or it veers off course, that pilot still has a responsibility to do what that pilot was trained to do to get that plane on the ground where it's supposed to be. That is no different from a lawyer.
Yeah. When we come back, I want to talk about the ethical side, because Michael has really trained our lawyers about, hey, this is not the end all be all, use it at all costs. You've got to make sure that you use this technology to be more efficient, but you've also got to make sure you comply with the rules of ethics to check what you've got to make sure that it does the things that you need it to do to help our clients, and it can make us more efficient. But I'm just going to give you one example before we go to break, and I had mentioned it earlier before we started the show. I had 7, 8 depositions in a case, and these depositions are 250, 300 pages long. And I knew I needed to summarize those depositions at some point to get prepared for a motion coming up. And I just asked Michael, hey, Michael, can you use the AI program to summarize these? And I want you to summarize for the following words that are super important in my case. And when I say I got back those depositions in about 45 minutes, and I looked at the summaries, and I can go in them and I can click certain words, and it tells me where all the questions that I asked and the answers related to those topics were. That doesn't mean that I'm not eventually going to have to go back and read those passages in detail, but it's made it more efficient for me to know where those places are in the deposition. And that's just one example of how we're using it as lawyers at our law firm to be more efficient, to spend more time on the client's case and kind of the agenda of the case and the process of the case. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do as lawyers, but also the ethical considerations we have to worry about as lawyers.
So talking about ethics and also responsibility along with that as well. So that's where we're putting a pin in it as we take a break right now. But want to remind you that Hollis Wright is on all social media platforms. Go ahead and share, follow. Make sure you stay in contact with us when you're not watching on the show. But we're talking about generative AI, challenges, and the opportunities along with them as well. Go ahead and give us a call at 1-844-LAW-TALK. That's 1-844-LAW-TALK. An attorney from Hollis Wright standing by now. We're going to continue with this fascinating conversation when we come back.
Here's some good information from our firm to you. Hollis Wright recently launched the Law Talk podcast. With podcasts becoming so popular, this will be a simple way to provide our loyal viewers with more opportunities to access information about important legal topics and to learn more about our firm and how we can help you if the need ever arises. There are many ways to access the Law Talk podcast. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Also, episodes are always available on the Hollis Wright YouTube channel, as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Just search up Hollis Wright in the Law Talk podcast. Don't wait, take advantage and listen today. Thanks for watching The Attorneys, and we know you'll enjoy the Law Talk podcast.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best. Help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys.
Addiction kills hope.
But at Bradford, it all changes here.
Experience the difference
that proven treatment can make.
Find recovery. Find community.
at Bradford.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys. Our topic is generative AI, the opportunities and challenges associated with that. I want to invite you to check out the information scrolling at the bottom of your screen. It is worth the read. We like to make sure we give you information throughout the show. As we were going to break, Josh, you talked about the ethical concerns of generative AI and in the legal world, but also want to get some example, Michael, if you can give us an example how it's actually being used in a law firm.
From a functional standpoint, Josh gave a good example. It's actually how it started with me. I was getting ready for a trial. I was going through a bunch of depositions, most of which were taken by Carter Clay. I was trying to get ready to draft motions in response to summary judgments, and I thought there has to be a better way. And so I found an AI system that does exactly what I needed it to do. In terms of gathering data on, they have now systems in terms of what judges do, what certain law firms do, what insurance carriers do, just tons of information being able to be gathered very, very quickly. That's how most people are using this. Research and writing, I will be the first to admit, I am, at least for my generation, not the best on Westlaw and Lexis. It takes me a little bit longer than the average person of finding my keywords. These systems know how to get you to where you need to be to get the right case law, and it makes your practice so much smoother if you utilize them. And here's the main thing: they're so easy to use. It's easier than Google. It's certainly easier than LexisNexis and Westlaw. And so when you start combining these things, and what we've learned is LexisNexis and Westlaw now have an AI component. Adobe has an AI component, a generative AI component. I use it to proofread emails, to make them more brief. I can literally go in and say, hey, make this email to Josh more brief. In 2 seconds, It makes the email better written, better structured, sentence structure. So that's how people are using it in the good ways. However, there are some ethical concerns. Because what I am predicting and what these federal courts are coming down on these law firms are seeing is there is an over-reliance on AI, and it's happening rapidly. And there is an older generation of lawyers that says, well, we're not using it, so we're not going to learn about it. Well, the rules of professional conduct, as Josh knows, Josh can't just let his employees and the people that are under him run wild and him go put his hands up. He has a duty to monitor them, to make sure that they're doing things ethically, and that they're not over-relying and that they're following the rules of professional conduct. So everyone from every generation, every age, is going to have to learn about AI and the appropriate uses of it in the legal community, because as these younger generations, that Josh's kids who are in college, about to get out of college, when they become lawyers, let me tell you, they're going to use this because they're already used to using it in every aspect of their life.
Yeah, you have to still use the human brain to do independent research and data confirmation for this stuff. I'll give you two shining examples. One is you can literally go in, and Michael's shown me this, to AI, and you can go into these programs and you can say, I would like you to draft me a response to a motion to dismiss based on the following facts and based on the fact that my client may have contributed to their own accident in some way. And it will spit out a brief for you in about 4 or 5 minutes. And the brief would look done on its face when you read it. It would look really good. Then when you go in and you reassess and you start searching some of the cases may have been overturned by more recent law. Maybe it didn't quite get the context you were looking for, where it thought your client actually caused the accident as opposed to may have been a contributing factor to the accident but not the sole cause of the accident. And you have to find a way to look through that, assess it, evaluate it, and then clean it up to make sure that ethically you've done your job for your client, right? That's just one example. I'll give you another example, which I found fascinating. My daughter at the kitchen table not long ago, who's a college student, says that they use this and they now teach classes of generative AI in college. How to ethically use generative AI for your benefit in college without violating the principles of the academic institution that you're at, right? And she said, Dad, I can just say your name and Birmingham and lawyer, and I'll know everything about you and your history. Absolutely. I said, okay. And so she did it. And you know what? It was really close. The problem was it pulled from a law firm that I was a part of 15, 20 years ago that is not the same law firm that I'm a part of now. Right. And I said, had you not known that, if you were getting ready for an interview, for example, and you wanted to do research on somebody, you would have been wrong and you would have walked into that interview thinking that person worked for that company. The reality is they work for a new company today, but it didn't pick that up on you. So you have to, those are just examples that give some context to this, but you can use it to your advantage at the same time.
So it can save you a lot of time. I'm worried about the number of people it may displace, and something else that I'm worried about is where does all that information live? Because now you're putting information out there, and some of that information may be intellectual property and content that you don't want on the web.
Well, here's in terms of the legal field and what our viewers need to know about their lawyers, but you talked about, replacing lawyers with this. The reason that can't happen is the reason that Josh has said, is that there is a level of critical thinking that is required by the first rule of professional conduct. That is competence. You have to be a competent lawyer. You have to be competent about what you are filing, what you are pleading. Well, if you're just getting AI to do everything, and it turns out that AI was wrong about something, and you didn't check it, like Josh's former law firm from 15, 20 years ago, and you go into court and they go, this is incompetent, this is incorrect. You can't go, well, I put it into AI and this is what it spit back out, so I filed it. AI is not the attorney. You are the attorney. So these systems, if they are over-relied upon to do your job for you, and you replace that critical thinking, you're violating the rules of professional conduct. And that's why I actually think The younger generation is being taught this in an academic way that our older generation that are now our leaders need to understand that they have to learn about this so that they can monitor the younger lawyers below them who they are training and raising, and they cannot ignore it because people are going to abuse this in ways that they shouldn't. Because if you have a lawyer, you hired them, they are your employee, and they have to follow that first rule of professional conduct to do it competently.
And we're talking a lot about the rules of professional conduct and ethics and the downfalls of AI. When we come back, because I know we're getting ready to go to break, I do want to talk about, hey, in practice, like how, as an example, is this law firm using it to our advantage to help our clients and benefit those clients? We've given a couple examples, but I want to talk about in practice how we're actually using this for the benefit of our clients to be more efficient than we are generally.
So there are some real opportunities
Absolutely.
to utilize
Absolutely.
generative AI in a very useful way. So yes, we're going to go ahead and take a break right here. We're going to do this pretty quickly because we want to get back into this last segment and wrap up with a lot of good information. Stay where you are. We're talking generative AI, opportunities and challenges here on The Attorneys. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching The Attorneys each Sunday night, where we come to your living room to provide free legal advice in a confidential, off-air setting. Unfortunately, with the number of calls, texts, and emails that come in during the show, we can't always get to everything. But know this, Hollis Wright is open all week long. You call us at 844-LAW-TALK and we're going to answer your question for free. Thank you for watching The Attorneys, and we look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
If this place could talk, it wouldn't. It would sing and celebrate all of our stories of addiction recovery, victory, and community. This is Bradford Health Services. It all changes here.
Welcome back. You are watching The Attorneys, and we're talking about generative AI and the opportunities and challenges in the legal world. We want to get right back into this last segment.
We talked a lot about some of the pitfalls and ethical considerations, but I really want to hammer home how this technology is the future. We need to learn how to embrace it and how our law firm is embracing it for the benefit of the clients that we represent. Because I know there are a lot of ways that you've taught us to do this, and we're using it in really positive ways.
Yeah, I think the reality is we talked about the pitfalls. There is another side of that, which is I think we get to a point ethically where it's going to be malpractice not to use it, right? I mean, spending a bunch of time and billing someone to go through thousands of medical records when you can get AI to do it for you, eventually you're going to have to use these things. They can't be ignored. It's just the same. Go back to that pilot. He's going to have to use the tools that he has on there. He can't just go, I don't want to learn them. I'm going to fly this Delta flight solo across the country and ignore all of the technology that we have to make this safer and better for our clients. So we talked about the depot summaries, the research and writing, which is a big, people don't understand that's a huge part of litigation, being able to do that efficiently and using AI to do that efficiently. I think, Josh, to me, what is going to be the biggest is the analytics. So we've seen in football and sports across, they've used artificial intelligence to play thousands of games to figure out analytically what's the right thing to do. Well, there are systems that are already in place. One's called Premonition, there's Lex Machina. These are analytics that are just built for litigation, that is taking all of litigation across this country, dividing it by venue specific, insurance carrier specific, the types of cases, what certain judges do, how certain law firms treat these types of cases, what this jury does, separating it by the age of jurors, their socioeconomics, the neighborhoods they live in. That information for a litigator to be able to get it and say, this is my situation, I'm in this venue with this judge arguing this situation, getting all of that information. In the past, we've had to sit and go through it together and roundtable what you think. What's your experience, Josh? What's your experience, Michael? Have you been to Calhoun County with this type of case? Now we can get everybody's experience, and it comes to us. It's going to be so valuable to use those analytics.
And he's exactly right. It also helps us determine in what venues we may want to file a case based on results for those types of cases. In addition to that, it helps us evaluate when it's time to resolve a case when we're working with an insurance carrier or a defendant. It helps us evaluate the value of the case relative to other cases that carrier has paid in the past. Michael mentioned that a little bit about working through the data of what insurance companies do. That's a good example of how we do it. So there is a whole host of things that we can use it for the benefit of our client to increase the value. We talk a lot about process, and we talk about how what's different about our law firm from others is the process that we use turns a $25,000 case into a $50,000 and a $50,000 into a $200,000 case and beyond, right? And so this is just part of the process that we use to be efficient and effective for our clients, to make sure that they have lawyers that are doing everything they can to maximize the value of their case and increase the value relative to what some other law firm may do out there to churn and burn their case and turn it quickly to move on to the next one. So it's just another great example. And having a guy like Michael who has really studied up on this and, I think has some speaking engagements related to this moving forward, is going to 100% benefit our clients.
I think at home you can see when you watch Michael talk about this, how excited he is. It's like he's going to a football game because this is so fascinating. I'm just wondering, what is it doing for productivity at Hollis Wright?
Well, for me, it's been extremely productive, but you talked about going to a football game because I think this is important. He talked about all the ways that we're using it. Listen, it's called litigation for a reason. It's litigious, right? It's like a football game. There is another side who is working against you. In my brain, the way I look at it, you talk about me getting excited, I think it's more of an insecurity and a fear because I know the other side is using it. And I know that they are utilizing it because their goal is to get the best result for their client. Yeah. Well, Michael Eldridge's goal is to get the best result for his client, to put his client in the best venue with the best people to get the best result. And if I can use something that furthers that endeavor, then I have to use it. And that's the reason that I am excited about this, and I think it needs to be studied and utilized.
It's one of those things, Art, that the future is a bit intimidating when you talk about technology and generative AI, but at the same time, we've got to embrace it, we've got to roll our sleeves up, we've got to learn it, and we've got to use it to our advantage, and that's what we do at Hollis Wright.
We need to come back to this topic.
I agree. This is a great topic. You did a fabulous job.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
Michael
you,
does a great job on this.
I am even more fascinated by AI, generative AI, now after talking to Michael and Josh about this, and I hope you are as well. Make sure you continue to stay with us. Follow us on all social media platforms. Follow, share, and like us as well. We'll see you back here next week for another episode.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.